Hello and welcome to Catch News. I'm in conversation today with our eminent sociologist and public intellectual Dr. Dipankar Gupta. I'll be talking to him about certain social and political developments in today's India. Professor Dipankar Gupta, thank you for joining me in this conversation. I wanted to talk to you about the UP election and your explanation for BJP's victory. You've said that Modi got his sociology right while the non-BJP parties didn't get their sociology right, and you ascribe the sweep of the BJP to growth in literacy and urbanization. What are the lessons from UP for the non-BJP political parties?
Well, it's like this. I don't know if the BJP actually sat down to do sociology, but inadvertently they got it right. For a long time I've been saying that if you think purely on caste grounds, then you're in for trouble, because there is no caste anywhere in the country which has enough on its side to win an election on its own. That's point one. The point two aspect of sociology is that no caste likes any other caste. There's something called mutual repulsion. So to say that the peasant caste naturally congregate is something which is academically and sociologically incorrect. So when they do congregate, one should look at reasons beyond caste as to why they congregate and come together and form specific alliances. And you will also remember that these alliances are very fragile. They're here today, gone tomorrow. Remember the Kham, Ajgar, these things just happen and now they are history. Nobody even remembers them. What the BJP did cleverly was that it isolated the Yadavs, said you go ahead and be your Yadav, the scheduled castes, and took in the rest. And they did this symbolically too. For example, they had members of every community in their list of candidates. They didn't give preference to any Muslims. Whereas on the other side, there was a heavy reliance on Muslims. This was clearly a message being sent out. And unfortunately, the other parties fell into the trap. And this message that was sent out was, you take the minorities, I'm taking the rest and walking away. And this is why I said the sociology was right, because what the BJP did was, it actually called the caste bogey. And it turned out to be a bluff.
Okay, but so do you think that literacy and urbanization and the growth in these two processes of making people literate and people urbanizing from rural areas getting urbanized, are they both contributing to the creation of a pan-community, pan-caste identity which is Hindu in nature, especially in UP?
The first thing is true, that once you move out of the village, then old ties of old relationships, they obviously don't work any longer. So you're looking for new ways of relating, which is why you will find so many new temples coming up in urban India. People who are rootless migrants, they want some kind of identity. They can't find that identity in family relations because families are spread out, even in terms of clan. Perhaps even caste is a bit of a problem, but caste they can get together somehow. But in getting together, they often overlook or elide over the various distinctions that are there between subcastes or groups that intermarry. So they have a sort of generous definition of Rajput or Jatav or whatever, So there is this pressure to move out of local or small time combinations and search for bigger ones, right? That is a human failing. It happens everywhere. In fact, Max Weber pointed out, those who are literate and urban are more community conscious than those who are not, simply because the need is greater. It's not that they don't have this need in villages, but villages is met with instantly. You have a problem, you have a cousin, you have an uncle, you have a clan member, you have a caste member, and things are sorted out, whatever, to your advantage or whatever. It happens because of those mechanisms. In the cities, those things have to be rethought and recast.
But why is it always a Hindu larger identity which is being created?
It's not Hindu alone, it can be Muslim identity also. In fact, I would like to say this to you, that the minorities in India have a pan-Indian presence than you and I would imagine. For example, a scheduled caste boy was attacked in Hyderabad, and scheduled caste organizations across the country were activated. Likewise, something happens to a religious minority, other people, same community, they get exercised. Today, because of urbanization and communication, it is not so easy to victimize people and get away with it and be very secretive. These things do come out in the open. So my point is simply this, that all of these things are less opaque now. the transparency is greater. And because the transparency is greater, we are more agitated about it. And because we are more agitated about it, it is only natural that those who have been victimized should seek support and help from the rest.
So every identity is becoming a larger identity because of urbanization, a pan-Indian identity. But if I take your UP argument to Bihar, why didn't the same thing happen in Bihar?
You see what happened in Bihar, they got the sociology completely wrong. They gave seats to Paswan,
And Kushwaha.
hoping that they'll sweep in all the caste members. They got the sociology wrong because you cannot depend on castes, individual castes, to win. In fact, Paswan just won to 2 out of all the seats that were allotted to him. You see, it just didn't work. And moreover, on the other side, nobody put up Muslim candidates in 19%, 90%, 50%, 80%. They didn't do that. So you remember Owaisi went to Bihar and he was useless. He didn't do what I think the other parties hoped he would do. He wasn't able to galvanize them at all. And finally, you must remember that elections are always contextual. The context in UP was that you had this Yadav misrule. Now, though the Yadavs constitute only 9% of the population, they had Yadavs positioned in various important and sensitive positions in the state because of political supremacy of a particular family. Now, that didn't happen in Bihar, which is why Nitish's credibility was much higher than that of the Yadav family, Mulayam and his son. The context is very important. No election is like any other election. And unless you figure in the context, you'll never be able to understand. And if you take sociology seriously, this is what sociology is about.
You've also argued that the creation of a Hindu majority is the result of Indian independence and the democratic processes of India. What really did you mean by
Actually,
that?
I meant the constitution more than anything else. The Constitution of India and the various deliberations which lasted beyond 1950, there was a sudden gush of activism, constitutional activism, in 1956. The Hindu Marriage Act, the Hindu Maintenance Act, adoption, all that stuff, they happened in 1956, one after the other, in quick succession. Now, before that, there were Hindus and Hindus, retrospectively. There were different inheritance laws, in amongst Hindus, for example. And so one inheritance didn't clash with the other inheritance system. So what this Hindu Marriage Act and other acts did was it flattened those differences. And remember, when this was happening, the Hindu spokesmen of different groups were very, very upset. They didn't want it to happen at all. As you might recall, Ambedkar resigned because it was taking far too long. And he thought Nehru wasn't being, aggressive enough. But by the time it happened in 56, it had to be parceled into four acts, I think, in order to get it through. But one single act wasn't going to be, effective because there was such a concentration of opposition. Some of it from the Congress itself. In fact, that's what we don't notice. How many Congress people were against these acts, and then you are now banning polygamy, you're allowing for divorce, you're allowing for women, this and that and the other, and you're going to ruin the family. Things that they're saying even today when it comes to gay marriages and gay rights. That's the same kind of arguments that are brought up even today. So these were the things that were against the Hindu Marriage Act and all that the 56 did. 56, I think, was a very, very important point.
Your point about Hindu majority is limited to formation of Hindu personal law alone, or is it more than that?
Legally, the Hindu, a wider group than it was in the past, simply because of the emphasis on citizenship.
Okay, so you're not suggesting that more democracy gets entrenched in India, the more Hinduized the
No,
Hindu citizens
not
will
at all,
become?
not at all. I'm saying that the more Hindus will become better citizens, the more democratized we get. And my plea in that particular paper is, it was probably not mentioned as stridently as it should have, is that universal personal law, civil code is a very good idea. Because what happens is over a period of time, these divisions get obliterated. Because everybody has the same inheritance laws, same forms of marriage, same forms of maintenance, and so on and so forth. So these little frictions and difficulties that people have in relating to one another get unnecessarily exaggerated. Whereas citizenship would demand a uniformity of status at base, so that you can later on be different.
So do you think the success of Narendra Modi and the BJP is linked to creation of this Hindu majority, that actually these laws didn't make you a better citizen, but they made you more Hinduized, and that's what has benefited them in elections?
In some ways you could say that, but you have to be very careful in the way it is said. The reason why they've been able to play the Hindu card effectively in some cases is because they're able to position Hindus as citizens and Muslims as not being quite citizens. And that is where the mistake lies. We should not allow such divisions to happen. You must also remember that human beings are basically ethno-centric. They basically think of terms of caste, religion, language. They don't think of citizenship naturally. To think in terms of citizenship requires a great deal of deliberate effort.
But the deliberate effort just now is to create divisions. What's the political distance between this construction of Hindu majority and trying to create a Hindu Rashtra?
Well, you see, constructing Hindu majority and creating Hindu Rashtra are the same things. If you successfully do it, it's a Hindu Rashtra. If you don't do it successfully, you remain a group on the side whining and asking for attention. But the point I'm trying to make again and again is that this idea of a majority doesn't come about easily, because a majority community that come together have to give up many things. So the majority as we know it today has had to take into account many such issues, absorb them and go beyond them to become a majority. Why don't we go even further? Why don't we say we are Indian citizens first and foremost?
Absolutely. So what prospect do you see for creation of a majority of good citizens rather than a majority of good Hindus and good Muslims and good Christians?
When India became independent, this city that we are in, Delhi, its population grew by roughly 3 times in about 4 months or so. And the people who came to Delhi were very upset with the partition, as you would imagine. They lost lives, family members, lost property, uprooted itself is a great trauma. And so many of them were sympathetic to those people who were against Gandhi and Nehru, because they thought Gandhi and Nehru had something to do with the partition. And they facilitated it rather. It is an impression that they carried. However, election after election after election after election, Nehru's Congress party won in Delhi. So privately they said RSS boys are good, Mahasabha boys are good, so-and-so boys are good. But come election time, they go and vote for Congress. Why did they do that? They did that because Congress had a plan, had a narrative, had a promise, had a manifesto which looked believable and credible. Nehru said, we're going to give jobs, we're going to make engineers, we're going to do this, that and the other, we're going to make dams, we're going to increase prosperity, and people voted for that. So privately they may have griped and groaned, but publicly they went and voted for Nehru. Now what I'm saying is this, that unless you have a particular kind of manifesto discourse which is credible, believable and alternative, you will not make it. The BJP has a manifesto which is believable so far. He says, I'm going to digitalize India, I'm going to open bank accounts, and people begin to believe it. I'm going to remove corruption, people are believing it. Now, if you want to beat the BJP, and I think every government should have a good opposition, if you want to do it, then you have to think of an alternative way of putting facts across, or at least promises across, which are credible. To say that we're going to get 20 other parties together and then defeat the BJP is a ridiculous way of doing it.
So no grand alliance, but a grand narrative which is different.
Yes. Because citizenship is not easy. Democracy has never been easy. It doesn't come out like that, People are naturally linguistic biased in terms of language, caste, creed, all of that is there. But what forces them out of it is citizenship promised by political parties that take them out of their petty, connections into something larger. But this is a constant fight. You can't take your eyes off the ball. The moment you do, we slide back again. It is constantly, you have to keep this pressure on so that it stays buoyant. And to believe, therefore, that the Hindu majority or the Protestant majority or the Christian majority is there for good, it's not the way one should look at it. They should see it rather in terms of stepping stones. We made this Hindu majority a constitutional majority, not to beat up somebody else, but we made the constitutional majority so that they would be better citizens.
Thank you very much indeed. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week with another personality. Till then, goodbye.